Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Koji, and in this video I'm going to be showing you literally my entire Legend of Zelda collection. For those of you who are big fans of The Legend of Zelda like me, you'll know that Legend of Zelda has just recently celebrated its 35th anniversary. Now, if I had properly managed my time, this video would have been put out on the day. However, it's here now, and I am going to be pretty much showing my entire Legend of Zelda collection. Now, I am going to note that this is actually like 99.9% of my entire collection, because there's a couple little things that have kind of gone missing, and I know I have them somewhere, but I didn't want to have to take the time to go dig that out, because it was already a nightmare to dig out some of the things that I recently have just done, and it's going to be more of a pain to put this all back. So the first thing to note is t-shirts. I have several t-shirts from The Legend of Zelda. The one that I'm wearing right now is the most recent one that I bought, but then I only actually have two other t-shirts. This one right here is actually the first t-shirt I've ever gotten from The Legend of Zelda. It was a present from my parents. I believe it was either my birthday or Christmas, and I haven't really worn it that much just because I wanted to kind of preserve it, because this one was special to me. This one is actually the t-shirt I bought while attending the Symphony of the Goddess while it was on tour in Chicago a few years back. This is also one I don't really wear a whole lot, because like the other one, I like to kind of preserve it because it has some sentimental value to me, and I like to kind of keep that. You'll also note that I have a blanket here. This was a Christmas gift from my brother, which is actually the second one he has given me. The first one he gave me is right here, and it's pretty much just a black blanket with the Legend of Zelda crest on the front. And I use it every so often, mostly while I'm taking a nap on the couch, like this one. I'm just going to set that right there. Alright, first we're going to start big, and then I'm going to work my way down. So next thing we're going to look at are weapons and props. So the first thing is my Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild shield backpack. So this is a hard plastic shield outside, some faux leather straps, and like I mentioned before, it is a backpack. So you can see it opens up here, and this is the shield that I actually wear when I'm cosplaying Breath of the Wild Link, because not only does it go with my costume, I have something to carry what I usually carry with me during conventions, because while my pants that I wear with my costume have pockets, I don't have anything else that can carry all the stuff that I carry, like water bottles and stuff. So this is actually a really cool thing to have. I know there's a Hylian shield one as well that's also hard plastic, but they're hard to find because they're out of production, and people who do have them are selling them for way over market value, and that's just not something that I'm willing to invest in at the moment. Next thing is my foam Legend of Zelda Hylian shield. So it's like a foam resin mix. The base is resin and the outside is foam, which allows it to be pretty lightweight. This is the one I carry with me while I'm cosplaying, because the one that I previously used is metal, which is actually hidden somewhere in the bag. Like I mentioned before, there's a few things that I just weren't able to find because it's buried somewhere in my closet, and I didn't want to take the time to pull everything out to unbury it. So this is the one I'm going to show off right now. This is the cosplay shield that I use while attending conventions, just because it's lightweight, the straps aren't that hard to deal with, and they're pretty versatile because I can adjust one of them. Alright, next we're going to swords. This is my foam Master Sword. This is the one that I use while I'm cosplaying. I originally used a Orden sword that me and my father made out of a 2x4, so it was pretty big but also very clunky, very heavy, especially with the giant scabbard that we made for it. So luckily, when the foam Master Sword started being made, I got one immediately, and this is the one I use every time I cosplay. Alright, next up are the metal swords. This is my Master Sword replica that I bought fairly recently. It's nothing special. It's a metal handle, faux leather wrap, and 440 stainless steel, I believe. If you watched my unboxing video of my Legend of Zelda Collector's box, this is what I used to open up the box. Now I do plan on getting a nicer replica of the Master Sword, but that'll come in due time. I'm kind of trying to decide which one that I want to buy, because they are kind of expensive, and it's something that I kind of want to think about before I commit to purchasing something like that. Alright, the last of the metal swords is this one, which is it was kind of an impulse buy. This is one of those more kind of dingy plastic Master Sword replicas with a very thin, I believe 440 stainless as well, metal blade. It's not that sharp, but it's sharp enough to, you know, probably harm somebody. And like I mentioned, this was an impulse buy. I bought it at a convention, I believe, when it was really cheap. So that's the only reason why I have this. Otherwise, I'm thinking about selling it off so I can get a better one. So I'm just going to set that right there. The last one, of course, is also an impulse buy, and that is the toy Master Sword that is official to the world of Nintendo. I bought this when they first came out, and like I mentioned, this was an impulse buy, and the main reason why I bought this is kind of nostalgia. When I was a kid, I always wanted some kind of like a toy Master Sword, and they were never available when I started playing The Legend of Zelda. In fact, very little things were made for The Legend of Zelda in terms of action figures and stuff, and the one thing I wanted was a Master Sword replica, so I bought this, and I pretty much do nothing with it. It sits in my closet, and I'm probably going to sell this one off as well. Alright, the next thing we're going to move on to are figurines, statues, and Amiibos. Now we're going to start off small and kind of work our way up into the larger ones. Alright, the first ones that I have here in my hands are actually the ones that sit on a shelf. It's a little bit off screen, but I have a shelf right here that had a whole bunch of video game themed stuff, as well as the one on this side, and these are the ones that sit on this shelf. Several of these are gifts from friends because they know I like The Legend of Zelda, and whenever it's like my birthday or Christmas, they can always just go get me a little figurine of Link or something like that. Now most of these are of Skyward Sword. That's when most of these came out, was when that game was at its peak of popularity. So I have two statues here, one's larger than the other, of course. I'm just going to put those up here in front. You probably won't be able to see those very much. Let's see, that should be pretty good. I also have the official Legend of Zelda Nintendo Skyward Sword action figure. Now this is the one where it has a little bit of posability, as well as a sword, scabbard, and shield. This one's a little bit hard to stand up. I kind of always have to lean him against something in order to keep him steady. Well, it looks like he's going to stand up right now. This is the Legend of Zelda Sword and Shield plastic figurine that came in the collector's box that I unboxed on a previous video. And this one also sits on the shelf with these figures. Next up is a mini light up Majora's Mask figure. As you can see, the eyes light up when you flick the switch. Now this one was relatively inexpensive. I bought it off of eBay, but I originally thought it was going to be a little bit bigger, but I'm pretty happy with it. I do like the fact that it lights up because a lot of stuff on that shelf lights up. Okay, now we're going to go really old school. This is my Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Link figurine, and this was pretty much one of the very first figurines that came out when Ocarina of Time was at its peak of popularity. When I saw these in the store when I was a kid, I flipped out and had to buy it. This came as a set with Princess Zelda and Ganondorf, which are in a box somewhere. Again, I have a whole bunch of things that are kind of missing. I know I have them, they're just stored away, and I wasn't going to take the time to dig them out because it took a while to dig this one out, as well as a couple others that are sitting next to me. But this one is one of my pretty much prized possessions. This is one of my favorites for nostalgic purposes and sentimental value. Also still kind of on the old school, here are more Legend of Zelda figures that came out during Ocarina of Time, and that was a more posable Link with a Master Sword that actually slid into the sheath, and Epona that has pegs on her back as well as peg holes in the back of Link's legs so he can ride the horse, but I'm not going to put those together right now just because I don't want this video to be too long. Now along with that set also came Ganondorf. Actually, they weren't actually sold as a set, they were sold separately, but they were made around the same time. So here's Ganondorf and his horse. Ganondorf also came with a scepter because you can turn him into Phantom Ganon as well. He's currently wearing the mask. It really just slides off of his face and then it's regular Ganon. But he also has pegs on the back of his legs for his horse as well. So I'm just going to set those right there. And the last of the old school figurines was Impa with young Princess Zelda. This is kind of reminiscent of the scene in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, both in Link's dreams and when Link returns to Hyrule Castle to meet with Princess Zelda. They run out of the castle from Ganondorf. So Impa sits on the horse and she's actually holding her knife in her hand, and Princess Zelda just sits on the back, and that's what these figurines are. Alright, more of the items that sit on my shelves. Here is a Breath of the Wild light. It's the Sheikah Eye from the slate that Link uses. This lights up, however, it is a USB powered device. Even though it does have a battery pack here, it has to be plugged into a USB, I believe, in order for it to work. I can't remember. I think I have to either go back and look at the instructions and see if it had an independent power source or not, because it looks like it has a battery pack. However, when I use this, I do plug it into a USB power source in order to get it to light up. Sticking with the light up things, we have these two Pixel Pal links. Both are from the original Legend of Zelda. This is the red armor, and this is, I believe they called it the white armor. The third one is the green armor link, which is the original one. However, for some reason, people sell those for ridiculously overpriced prices. So unfortunately, I don't have one right now, but when I can get one that's either not too badly beaten up and not too overpriced, I'll get one in the future. Alright, next are Amiibos. Yes, I bought Amiibos when they were something trendy to have, but I only bought the ones of the characters that I really like. So first ones are Super Smash Bros. Link and Zelda. Now you can see that Link is actually open, unfortunately, because I did take him out to scan him for Hyrule Warriors to get rewards. I didn't open Zelda, and I may or may not try and get a new version of this unopened, but as of right now, I'm not somebody who keeps these for collector's value. When I get a display case in a better living location, these are just going to come out of their box anyways and sit on a shelf to look nice. Next two are Link from Majora's Mask and Link from Link's Awakening. No real particular reason why I got these other than that they're Legend of Zelda. I'm not taking them out to scan them or anything, even though if I do take this one out and scan it into Breath of the Wild, I will get a special costume and weapon. It looks like Fierce Deity Link. I don't think this one has any particular significance to it, so I just keep it in the box. And like I said, when I get a nicer living space with a nice shelf, these are just going to come out anyways. Last ones are Super Smash Bros. Toon Link and the Twilight Princess limited edition figure that came with the HD remake of the game for the Wii U. Now you'll probably note that this has its own independent box just like this, but I liked this box as well because it's kind of like a holographic kind of effect to it, even though it's a little bit beaten up. So I just keep it just because it looks nice. But once again, when I get a better living space with a nice shelf, these are just coming out. Alright, next up are the more serious figures. This is the World Nintendo jumbo sized Link figure. Now you'll probably start noticing that I have a lot of things that were kind of impulsive buys. So I had really no other reason to have this other than that it is a Link figure. But as you can see, it's in the box and I haven't really touched it. It's covered with dust and I may or may not keep it. But in the event that this still stays with me when I have a nice display that I can put this in, that's just going to come out of the box and sit on a shelf and look pretty. Alright, now we're moving into Figma. I have the Good Smile Company Legend of Zelda Link for Link Between Worlds. This is the DX edition, so it comes with a slew of extra accessories versus the average one. So just in case I don't have to say it every time I pull out a figure, all these are only kept in the box because of the tiny little pieces that they have. And when I have a better living location with a nice display case, these are all just going to come out. I'm going to pose them so they can look nice. There's no collector's thing that I'm doing here by keeping it in the box because I'm not going to like resell it to try and get a more jacked up price. I'm only keeping these in the box because they have a lot of tiny pieces and I don't want to have to keep track of them. So they're going to just stay in the box. Also, some of these are already opened and played with, so there's no collector's value left in them. Alright, next one is Figma Skyward Sword. This is the standard one. I believe there was a bigger one as well with more accessories. I'm not sure about that, but this is the one I got. This is one of the first figures that I bought, and I messed with this one quite a bit. I posed it and did some goofy things on Instagram, so of course this one is open and played with. Alright, now we're moving on to Nundoids, I believe is how they're pronounced. I have Majora's Mask Link. Young Link Majora's Mask version is what they call it. And then I also have Wind Waker version as well. This is the first Nintendoid that I bought. I was never really that big into these, but when I see a character that I kind of like, specifically Legend of Zelda, I do try and get it if I can get it at a good price. The last Nintendoid that I have is one that I actually really like, and that is the Breath of the Wild XD or DX edition of Link. This one I haven't opened up yet, but when I get the time to kind of have fun with it and kind of pose it, I will. But like I said, like I mentioned before, there's a ton of little pieces here, so I'm not going to open this up and risk losing all these pieces. Alright, this was probably one of the biggest purchases I've made when it comes to Legend of Zelda merchandise, and that is, of course, Real Action Heroes Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. This is another one of the ones that I have already opened up and played with, but as you can see here, I keep it in the box to kind of keep all the pieces together, but this is something that I've already opened up and handled, and there is a Breath of the Wild one, of course, and I will hopefully get one of those when the prices go down. But as of right now, there's not very many left in circulation, and when they do show up, they're usually for a very outrageous price. So that's the only reason why I don't have that one right now. Oh, quick thing that I want to add with the figurines that I have in front of me is this. This is the official Nintendo Ocarina of Time Ocarina. It is plastic, and it's not actually a real ocarina. It is battery powered, and all the buttons here are based off of the buttons that you press in Ocarina of Time to play specific songs. And all the sounds are played through speaker back here. Right now I have it off, and I don't know if the batteries are still good, so let's turn it on, so let's see if it still makes sounds. Nope, batteries are dead. So I'll have to replace those eventually, but really I don't really use it, so it just sits on my shelf like the other figurines over here and just looks nice. But really quickly, staying with the ocarina, I have a real ocarina here from Stl Ocarina. This is the first real ocarina that I purchased. I got from them in person at a con. There it is. This one is specifically based off of the Ocarina of Time, so it's the right color and it has the Triforce kind of emblazoned on there. Looks really nice. Now, I actually don't know how to play ocarinas with this many holes. However, I do have booklets to learn, and I hope to do that sometime in the future. Also because I have actually a lot of ocarinas. I bought quite a few ocarinas from Stl Ocarina. One of them was, a few of them came from a mystery box actually, so I just got a whole bunch randomly. And then I also have one that I just wanted to learn how to play on outside of this one that's actually plastic. So I do intend on learning how to play ocarina, otherwise they're just sitting there doing nothing. Now we're going to move on to books, and this is the main reason why I chose to do this on my coffee table and not my usual table, because it wouldn't be able to support the weight of having all these books stacked up on it. But really quickly, I'm going to make some room. Alright, so we're going to start off with some of these collector's books here. This is Legend of Zelda art and artifacts. I love a lot of the art from Legend of Zelda, and I like to see some of the concept art that was used when creating a lot of the characters, so I usually like to buy a lot of these books. Now this one is open. This one already has the wrapping taken off because I really wanted to see the art for Legend of Zelda, especially all the concepts and designs that went through the creation of each iteration of Link, as well as the environment and all the other characters. This is the Legend of Zelda Encyclopedia. I, of course, haven't opened this yet. I just neglected to, but when I get around to it, I'm just going to take the plastic off and read it. There's no purpose of me keeping it wrapped because I'm not going to be like trying to resell it for a collector's value or anything like that. Last is the Hyrule Historia. When this came out, I really wanted to get it. And it did take a while for it to come to America, but when it came out, I got one really quickly. I believe this was given to me as a gift, from somebody. So that was really nice. Like I said before, usually when my friends are giving me gifts, they usually go to Legend of Zelda stuff first because you can never really go wrong with Legend of Zelda stuff from me. Alright, the next one is actually something that's actually pretty special to me. This is the original Japanese 25th anniversary Hyrule Historia from Japan. I got this when it just came out, and the only reason why I have this is because I have Japanese cousins. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually part Japanese. Hence my name being Koji. And my cousins knew I loved The Legend of Zelda and saw that it came out, so they got one for me and shipped it out to me, and that's the only reason why I have this, and I love it so much. Of course, there's nothing different really between this book and the Hyrule Historia outside of this one being a little bit smaller. Otherwise, the content is exactly the same. Also, this is in Japanese, of course. Alright, we got a few more books before I move on to game guides. This is the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Creating a Champion. Like I mentioned before, I love getting any book from Legend of Zelda that has artwork in it, or anything that shows the creation of the characters and the environment. So this is one of the ones I absolutely had to have. I believe there might be another version of this that's a little bit fancier, as well as a special collection that was available for a while that had pretty much this book, but also a few other things, which I didn't get a hold of. However, I believe it's still available some places, but this is the one I have, and I really like it. Of course, I've opened this one up, and I look through it every so often to see some of the stuff in it because I love Breath of the Wild. It's an amazing game, and it looks fantastic, so I had to get this. Next one is a game guide. This is the Breath of the Wild official game guide. Now, you'll see that it's actually still in the plastic wrap, and that's because when I bought the Breath of the Wild, I promised myself that I would go throughout the entire game and beat it, get all the items, find all the bosses, and get as many shrines as possible without opening the game guide. I was so dedicated to have the full experience of that game, and I'm so happy I did because kind of the, finding things out for yourself aspect of the game was one of the things I loved the most, so I didn't want anything spoiled for me. It was just that important. However, I should really open this up and take a look at some of the contents because I have already beaten the game and pretty much found, I believe, like 95% of all the shrines. I'm missing only a few shrines, and I haven't bought the DLC yet, so there's a couple shrines from that I haven't been able to get either. Alright, next guidebook up is the Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors guidebook. You can see it's one nice big picture there, which is pretty cool. Hyrule Warriors I feel like was kind of just an okay game. It was kind of fun to have that like Dynasty Warriors feel, which added to a very kind of thrilling experience, being able to fight a slew of enemies at once by yourself. Also, Link's costume design was pretty cool, but it was kind of a short game, I felt, except if you played that different mode in there. But like the main story, I felt was you were able to go through pretty quick. However, I still really liked the game, and I actually did do a cosplay of Link from this game. It wasn't really good, so I don't really show it off a lot, and I'll probably recreate it in the future. But until then, it's going to be on the back burner. But this was pretty cool, and you'll notice that I like getting hardcovers of these game guides because they look better on the shelf and they risk getting torn apart like the old game guides did, which I have a few still, and you'll be able to see those in just a moment. This is the Majora's Mask 3D remake guidebook. I have not opened this up yet. This is another of me trying to play through the game without looking at the guidebook. Now, it might be hard for some of you to believe, for somebody like me who loves the Legend of Zelda franchise, I haven't actually beaten Majora's Mask yet. I actually have the original cartridge for the game, as well as the 3D remake on my 3DS, and I'm currently playing it right now, but I actually have not beaten the game yet. Now, unfortunately, I already know how the game plays out. I know the ending because I have friends that have played it when it was still a cartridge for the N64, so there's nothing that I'm playing the game for that I'm not expecting already, but I'm playing for the experience. Here's the hardcover for Skyward Sword. This was a very nice book. This was kind of like when they started doing the hard books. Oh, as you can see, there was a cloth map that came with it, and I just kind of keep it in there because I don't know anything else to do with that. But I have very mixed opinions on the game Skyward Sword. I do have it, and I don't know if I'm gonna, revisit and play it again, but I think about it, and of course I have the book. I did cosplay Skyward Sword Link, which is actually one of the costumes that I kind of realized that I was starting to get good at making cosplay, because that one came out, it was very clean, it fit me very well, it looked great, and I really liked that costume. I actually did wear it for 3 years in a row attending conventions. However, it's starting to see some wear now with the fabric because it wasn't that nice, and my construction build isn't up to par compared to how it is now today. So I'm trying to keep it protected. It's packed away in a box somewhere. Yeah, I thought the game was just kind of okay. The art was fantastic. It's a very beautiful game, but I had very mixed opinions on the gameplay itself, and I didn't particularly hate it, but it was just kind of okay. Alright, this is the premium edition for Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess for the Wii. Now, it's weird that I have this because I don't actually have Twilight Princess for the Wii. I have Twilight Princess for the Gamecube as well as the Wii U. I didn't actually have it for the Wii. I think the reason why I bought this was because this was the nice one that was out at the time. I think there's also a hardcover of it now, just like these, and if I can find it, I'll get a hold of it. But I pretty much got this just because there's really no difference between the actual maps and the gameplay between the Wii and the Wii U, or GameCube, which is what I had it on at the time. So I just got this for backup just in case. I just had to take into consideration that right and left were different because the game was mirrored in the Wii version because people are primarily right-handed and Link's left-handed, so they had to make him right-handed for the game. Now we're starting to move on to older guidebooks. This is the original Legend of Zelda Link to the Past guidebook. As you can see, it's pretty beaten up just because I got this when I was a kid and I didn't really take care of a lot of things, and you'll see from other guidebooks I have, they're pretty beaten up. However, I have been able to find replacements for a few of them, which is nice because that's just something that I'll be able to keep for a while, keep on the shelf, and appreciate it for nostalgic purposes. Now, this is a game I actually haven't beaten yet. I still have it, and I do intend to play it to beat it, but I just kind of, been procrastinating on it. But this was also kind of a impulse buy as well, because I saw it when it was available when I was a kid, and just bought it. I don't think I referenced it too much. I just wanted to have it. Alright, here are all my old guidebooks. Some of them I've been able to rebuy and replace because some of them were completely destroyed, like this one. This is the Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons. My original guidebook that I had was completely destroyed because we had pets and they like to chew. So that one was ruined, but luckily there was a secondhand bookstore that had it, and I was able to rebuy it. Also, guidebooks I have are 2 of the original Majora's Mask guidebooks. Now you can see the front cover of this one is actually torn off and missing, which I'm kind of sad about. I don't know where it is, and I think it might have actually been completely destroyed. Like I said, we had pets that like to chew up things, so that one's kind of a bummer. I also have the original Wind Waker. I love the Wind Waker game, even though a lot of people kind of had a mixed opinion or hated it because it looked too cartoony. I thought this was one of the more fun Legend of Zelda games, and I replay it every so often. I really enjoy it every time I play it. I also had a couple other ones that came out. These were just, of course, to replace the one that was the older one, which, as you can see, is pretty worn, and also just for my OCD of buying different versions of it, even though it's pretty much the same thing. The last 2 are original Ocarina of Time guidebooks, but as you can see, they're pretty worn, pretty beat up. These are ones that I've kept ever since I was a kid, so I didn't buy these from any secondhand store. I've just had these for so many years, ever since I got the game. But the original guidebook that I actually used was this. This was a magazine that came out that was like tips and tricks. It wasn't a 100% all detailed guidebook, but it did cover the entire game, and this is actually what I used when I was a kid. So this was kind of a guilty thing, is I actually used the guidebook for certain elements of the original Ocarina of Time game, and this was it. It was a magazine that had just tips and tricks for the gameplay. Also, you can kind of see here, there's several little booklets for different games here. This is the original Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time booklet that came with the game, as well as I have Ages and Seasons, and it looks like the Game Boy Advance of A Link to the Past as well, sitting there in front. But these just sit in this little thing on a shelf and they collect dust. I don't really do much else with them. And they're getting pretty worn, but so far they've been lasting a pretty long time. Alright, now we're moving on to the finale of pretty much my collection. We're starting to move on to little accessories and trinkets. But also games. We cannot forget about games. Alright, for starters, here is the original Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time cartridge that I played when I was a kid. This was literally the first Zelda game that I played and beat when I was a kid. This is the very same cartridge, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't work anymore because last time I booted this up, I tried to start a file, the game crashed, and then the file was lost. Completely erased. So pretty much the internal battery that these cartridges are built on has pretty much given out, and this is really no longer playable, but I like to keep it. As well as the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask cartridge that I have here. This is the gold one, which I hear is actually kind of hard to find. Pretty rare, but like this one, this is pretty much not playable anymore, but I keep them anyways. I'm probably going to see if I can find a way to display these really nicely. There might be something that I can use, mount these, and like put them on display, which will be pretty cool. Alright, next up, we're moving on to Game Boy. I have both the Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons. Now, Oracle Ages was a game that I had on my Game Boy. Seasons is actually the game that my brother had. I have his twin brother, and we pretty much played a lot of similar games together. However, I believe this is a cartridge I bought separately so that I can play Seasons, as opposed to constantly borrowing his copy of it. So I have both cartridges, and I'm pretty sure these don't work anymore either, but I still have them. And like the cartridges I have for N64, I'm probably going to find a way to have these kind of nicely displayed for collecting purposes. Okay, now we're moving on to GameCube. I have the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. So Wind Waker actually got with the GameCube. This was one of the games that came with it when I bought it, as well as this really crappy other game, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, these were the two games I got. This game did come out with the Nintendo Wii version, but I decided to go with this just because I didn't want to bother with the hassle of using the nunchuck, I believe is what they call it, or the Wii remote. And I like, you know, Link being left-handed in the game, which I know they've changed recently in Breath of the Wild, but yeah, I got the GameCube version just because at the time I couldn't afford to buy the next console up, and that's kind of been an ongoing trend with me, is I always wait until the console goes on sale later, then I buy it, which is like a year later, and then by that time, the new one's already getting announced. Alright, now on to 3DS, I have the Majora's Mask 3D Remake, as well as the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D plus the Master Quest, which comes on pretty much the same cartridge. I beat both the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, of course. I pretty much know the whole game by heart, and every time I play it, I still love it. It's a fantastic game. You really can't go wrong with Ocarina of Time. And as well as the Master Quest. That was nuts and pretty crazy. I don't know whose idea that was, but yeah, that was great. This is a game I'm currently playing right now on my 3DS, and I'm hoping to beat this. So far, it's pretty cool. I still don't know the entire gameplay, even though I know the ending of the game. So I am still experiencing the gameplay for the very first time, and that's pretty fantastic. Okay, now on to Wii U. I have the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD remake, which should be evident because I have the special edition box here with the amiibo of Midna and Wolf Link. So of course I have this. I love this game. It looks fantastic. This was a very interesting turn for Legend of Zelda. It was this more realistic, gritty version of Legend of Zelda, and I just loved everything about this. Legend of Zelda's always been good about, you know, being very artistic in terms of its designs and the the world, so I had to get in the HD remake, even though I already owned, played, and beaten it on Gamecube. I have Hyrule Warrior. Like I said before, this was kind of a okay game because it was actually kind of short, the main storyline, unless you play this other arc, which is a more extensive one, and then you can also play on the other side. But yeah, this is very interesting. This is the second Dynasty Warriors game, or Dynasty Warriors theme game I've ever played. The first one being a Gundam variation of it. And they're pretty fun games, I have to admit, even though I've never played an actual Dynasty Warriors game. Next up is Wind Waker HD for the Wii U. Of course, I had to get this because I love the Wind Waker, and I had no problem starting a new game because I love playing this game over and over and over again. So I'll always choose to start a new game and be happy with it because even though I know a majority of the game by heart, I still don't know where like all the islands are all the time, and it's just a fun game. I know a lot of people were put off by the appearance of it when the game came out, but I didn't care. It looks really cool, the colors are very vibrant, and I love the soundtrack. Alright, last up is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for Wii U. This is a game that I'm still currently playing, even though I beat it. There's still shrines that I haven't found yet, so I'm still venturing around the world. I love it so much. I love the open map, and literally 100% of the map is traversable, which is fantastic. There's literally no limit except for the very edge of the map, of course, but I can't get enough of this game. Even though I've beaten it, I still love just running around the world and kind of rediscovering things or discovering things I didn't even know existed because I never actually traversed that part of the map before. So this is fantastic, and this is probably currently one of my favorite cosplays currently that I have made, and it's the one that I've worn multiple times already, and I love it, other people love it. It's very comfortable and looks fantastic. Alright, now we're moving on to kind of miscellaneous accessories. First I'm going to start with the fanny pack and notebook that came in the Legend of Zelda Collector's Box, which I did an opening for in a previous video. Here they are right now. The fanny pack, I don't know what's going to happen to it because I'm not really going to use it. I have this notebook, but I also have another notebook, which I believe was also a gift from another friend right here. Of course, it isn't open because I have other notebooks that I'm still using, so in the event that I've run out of notebooks, I'll probably start using these two as well, but we'll see. I may or may not just keep it like this, just so it'll look nice on the shelf, but we'll see what happens when that comes around. Alright, now we're moving on to things that definitely were gifts from friends, like Legend of Zelda wallets. These are not really something that I would have bought myself, so these are generally gifts, some kind of like either a birthday or stocking stuffer for Christmas. This one I think it's probably my favorite one. I don't think it's real leather, it might be faux leather, but it's stamped with a bunch of Legend of Zelda designs, as well as has the hard metal Legend of Zelda emblem. Just says The Legend of Zelda on the back. And it's just a standard wallet with a chain, nothing particularly special about it. That's all it is. This one, it has a Twilight Princess design printed on the body of the wallet, which you can see there. But just like this wallet, there's nothing particularly special about it. It has a very similar layout inside of it. Chain is just a little bit more shiny of a brass, but it's pretty much the same little emblem on the front of the wallets. Next up is a belt buckle that I bought myself. This was also an impulse buy just because when I saw it, it looked really cool. I never wear it because I have a metal allergy, and sometimes my belt buckles give me rashes, so putting this on just would make it worse. Also, it's really pointy, so if I bent over at all, this would be stabbing me constantly. So I just kind of keep it around for, kind of cool aesthetic, but I never use it. Alright, here is the pin that came in the collector's box with the fanny pack as well as one of the notebooks and the figure down there. I also have a water bottle, but I currently have it in the sink being washed so I can use it later. But this was the pin that came with it. I get to take it out and put it on something, but I'll decide what happens with that later. Here is a small bag that came with my ocarina from Stl Ocarina. It's a little kind of a travel bag, but you know, I never really take the ocarina with me anywhere because I don't actually know how to play it very well, so it's not like I'm taking it to places to play it. So I have it, but I don't use it. Here is the Legend of Zelda 3DS bag. This was meant to replicate the bag that Link wears in Twilight Princess because he has this pair of small bags on the back of his belt, so that's what this was to replicate. It's a faux leather, so it's not real leather. It's got a little strap here as well as a hook for chain or strap, and pretty much it's just the flap up and zip open. That's all it is. It has two little kind of a touch sensitive pens here. One is the Master Sword and the other one is the Handling Shield on the tips. Now I personally don't really use this because it's a big thing to put on your belt and kind of looks obnoxious, and I just pretty much don't take my 3DS with me all over the place. I already have a bag for it that I put in my backpack and it carries all my games, so I kind of have this just for the aesthetic. Here I have Ocarina booklets and sheets on how to play Legend of Zelda songs. This one is a bigger booklet with Link on the front of it, and this is a small one that came with one of my ocarinas. I bought this one separately. I can't remember if I bought from Stl Ocarina or not. I believe, this one came from Stl Ocarina when I bought mine. So those are how I'm going to learn how to play Ocarina. Hopefully I'll get to that pretty soon. Alright, next up is this official Legend of Zelda coffee mug. I have a kind of a random collection of cool coffee mugs. A lot of them are video game themed, so I have 2 PlayStation mugs, a mug with Snorlax on it. It's a really big mug. I like to call it my Monday mug because it holds the most coffee. And then I also have one with Jack Skellington on it, and I also have a limited edition Lucario mug that I actually had to get shipped in from Germany because I couldn't find it anywhere here in the States. But also I have this cool Legend of Zelda mug, which I'm probably going to take out and use eventually. But in the meantime, it sits on the shelf to look nice. One of the blankets I forgot to show. This is the Legend of Zelda map blanket that also came in the collector's box in my box opening. I looked at it again, and it appears to be kind of an accumulation of several maps. So while it looked like it was mainly Ocarina of Time, there were other places on this map that didn't exist in Ocarina of Time, so it was kind of an amalgamation of several maps put together. So that's kind of cool. It's smaller than my other blankets, and I'm probably looking to possibly just hang it on a wall somewhere so that it looks nice, because it's too small to use, really. Alright, now we're moving on to things that are not really official Legend of Zelda, but were kind of made by other people that I bought at convention stands. First up are these metal bookmarks, one with Link and one with Princess Zelda, both from Hyrule Warriors, and they look like water paintings, but these were made by some individuals that they had for sale at their stand. They had quite a few bookmarks, but I got Link and Zelda. I think these were the only ones that they had, only variations of them, so they didn't have any other version of Link or Zelda. I don't remember, but these are the ones I went with. I don't really use them. In fact, they just sit on a shelf and they just look nice sitting there. Otherwise, I'll probably, if I decide to use these notebooks, I'll use them as bookmarkers for notebook. Alright, here is a very cool thing that I also bought at a convention. These were some of the best recreations of Zelda rupees that I've seen from a creator. They're plastic molding, green, yellow, blue, red, and purple. As you can see there, they came in this nice little bag. These are pretty inexpensive. I think they were $10, $15, and you can actually buy these exact ones on Etsy. I'm not sure if it is the same person who made these who's also selling them, but you pretty much get an exact same kind of rupee molds on Etsy if you look for them. Alright, this one is also not an official Legend of Zelda item, but this is something that's very special to me. And this is my very first ocarina. My friends actually bought this for me at some kind of a store, like a flea market somewhere out of the country, and they had an ocarina. It's an only 4-hole ocarina, so I can actually play this fairly decently. It's pretty easy, but it's made to look like the Ocarina of Time ocarina. So even though they only have these 4 holes usable, there are little dimples here, signifying that, you know, there were actually more holes because the ocarina from Ocarina of Time had more, and of course they have the Legend of Zelda Triforce there at the top. So I thought this was really cool, and of course, you know, my friends know me very well when it comes to my fandom for Legend of Zelda, and it also came with a songbook that shows how to play songs. It's kind of a mixture of songs, but in the back were a few songs specifically for the Legend of Zelda. Alright, here is an official Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors scarf. I was super excited when this came out. This was for a while only available for people who bought a very special edition of Hyrule Warriors, and this came with it. However, those sold out immediately, and I was unable to get one for myself. And when people were reselling it on eBay, they were selling it for like 10 times its original price. However, looks like they started coming out with them individually, and I was able to buy one at a convention stand. It was their last one that they had, but I was able to get it at a fairly reasonable price. And I know for a fact it's not a knockoff. This isn't an officially licensed one, but I was really happy about this and really excited because when it comes to items and merchandise from things I like to collect, I like things that are usable. I like things that, like, it's not just going to sit on a shelf. It's something that I can actually use. Like, I can wear it like a t-shirt or a jacket to express my fandom, and I get more kind of nicer, I get a little more excitement out of it by having a usable item. However, I never really got a chance to use this, and I kind of don't want to because of how cool it is and how if I ruin this I won't be able to get it again. But by the time I got this, I had already started a job at a hardware store where this would have gotten ruined if I wore it, because I worked in the paint department, so this would have gotten destroyed. And then I started working an office job where this would have been inappropriate to wear. Even though I did wear a Star Fox beanie during the winter, I kind of had to keep myself from wearing this with my suit and overcoat. And the last item that I have in my collection is this. This is also a non-official Legend of Zelda item. This was made by an individual and sold on a website called Much Needed Merch. This item is actually going to be in a future installment of Cool and Unusual, so I can promote this particular item because I love this so much. This is a shoulder bag, but it's based off of the Wind Waker Postman bag, but only with the front design. The whole bag itself is different material, different design, and like I said, it's a shoulder bag, just flips open, and actually I have the strap kind of stuffed in here. And I was really excited to get this. I'm really like using it, especially in conventions, because I usually cosplay as Link, and like I said, I have the backpack because it fits with my costume, so I don't have to carry some kind of unusual backpack and constantly take it off and put it back on every time I take pictures, because the item that I wear works with the costume, so I don't have to worry about it so much. So when I wear the shield, I'm Breath of the Wild Link, and when I'm cosplaying as another form of Link, I just have this bag on me, and I can either leave it on me or I can just throw it behind me, and it doesn't matter if they see it because it works with the costume. And that's one of the reasons why I love getting items that I can use in conventions and cosplay, because it's associated directly with the character, so I don't have to worry about inaccuracies or having to take off and put back on a modern backpack in case somebody wants to take a picture. And so this is my entire Legend of Zelda merchandise collection. Now, when it comes to other collectors of Legend of Zelda merchandise, there are people who have a much more extensive collection than I do, like massive collections that make mine look puny. But to the average person, this is actually a lot of shit. In fact, when I started my collection, when I was living with my parents back in our old home before we sold it, they looked at the stuff I had and they just rolled their eyes and was like, oh my god, this is a lot of stuff. But now that I live on my own, and I don't live with my parents anymore, they don't have to worry about it, and I've accumulated more shit. A lot of it they don't know about. And then I also expect to gain more as time goes on. Whether or not some of these will be staying with me or not, I'll decide in the future. Like I said, one of the Master Swords that I have is kind of a crummy replica that I may or may not sell off, as well as the toy Master Sword, because I don't really have a need for it. It's a small item that's technically made for a child. It was a very impulsive buy for me, and I may or may not get rid of it later on. But the majority of the stuff I hope to keep with me as much as possible until it's, you know, kind of inappropriate for somebody of an older age to be having this stuff. But until then, I have all this. I enjoy collecting Legend of Zelda stuff. But until then, here it is, and if you stayed all the way to the end of this video, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm happy I was able to do something in celebration for Legend of Zelda's 35th anniversary, even though it has already come and gone, so I've technically missed it. But I'm happy to get around to something like this before it went too far into the past. But seriously, thank you again. I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll come back in the next video. Take care now. Oh man, I gotta put all the